They would later say the Alpha King was impossible to kill, that no blade could reach him, that no magic dared touch his blood. They were wrong, because on the night the moon burned red and the forest screamed with steel and death, he fell, bleeding, furious, undone. And I was there. I was no warrior, no wolf, no chosen mate marked by destiny. Just a girl with dirt beneath her nails, fear in her chest, and forbidden power I had sworn never to use again. But when his golden eyes met mine through the blood and smoke, when the king who ruled through terror lay dying at my feet, I made a choice. I saved him. I didn't know that saving an alpha's life is never free. I didn't know magic remembers promises the mouth never speaks. I didn't know that blood can bind souls tighter than chains. By dawn, he would live. By dawn, I would belong to him. Because some debts are not paid in gold. They are paid in flesh, breath, and soul. Chapter 1. The scream of steel tore through the forest like a dying animal. I smelled blood before I saw it. Thick, metallic, heavy in the air, mixing with pine sap and wet earth. The moon hung low and swollen above the treetops, its light stained red, as if the sky itself had been wounded. Wolves howled in the distance. Not in triumph. In warning. I should have run. Every instinct in my body told me to flee, to disappear into the shadows like I had always done, like someone unmarked and unwanted was meant to do. But then I heard him. A sound ripped from a throat not used to pain. A sound of fury, disbelief, and blood. I froze behind a fallen tree, heart slamming against my ribs. Through the smoke and chaos, I saw bodies scattered across the clearing. Warriors. Rogues. Men who should never have been close enough to touch him. And in the center of it all, he was on one knee. The Alpha King. Even wounded, he radiated power. His dark cloak hung in tatters from broad shoulders, soaked through with blood that glistened black in the moonlight. One hand braced against the ground, the other pressed to his side, where crimson spilled between his fingers far too fast. I had never seen him before, but I knew him. Everyone did. The king who ruled through fear. The Alpha who never lost. The beast in human form who crushed rebellion with his bare hands. And now he was bleeding. Golden eyes lifted sharply, cutting through the clearing, and locked onto me. My breath caught. They were not the eyes of a dying man. They were sharp, burning, furious that his body had betrayed him. "Come out," he growled. The sound slid down my spine like heat. I should have obeyed. Or run. Instead, I stepped forward. The rogues were dead or gone. The forest was eerily still now, save for the wet drip of blood onto leaves. I emerged from the shadows slowly, hands raised, not in surrender, but to show I carried no blade. His gaze swept over me, assessing, measuring, dismissing. "You're not one of them," he said, voice rough but controlled. "No," I whispered. "You should leave." I almost laughed. The Alpha King ordering me gently. Even wounded, he expected obedience like air. "You're dying," I said instead. A dangerous smile tugged at his mouth. "No." I swallowed hard and stepped closer. The heat rolling off him was overwhelming, alpha dominance thick enough to press against my skin. Every step felt like walking into a storm. Blood soaked his side. Deep. Too deep. I knelt without thinking. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Saving your life," I said, and before fear could stop me, I pressed my hands to his wound. The moment my skin touched his, the world shattered. Power surged up my arms, violent and ancient, screaming awake from somewhere I had buried it. Heat scorched through my veins. My vision blurred. Symbols, old, forbidden, burned behind my eyes. "No," he snarled, trying to pull away. "Stop." "I can't," I gasped. Magic exploded outward. The forest recoiled. Wind howled. The moon flared brighter, its red light spilling across us like blood. Pain tore through my chest as the magic demanded payment. Not blood. Something deeper. I screamed as the power ripped through me, carving its way into his flesh, sealing bone, knitting muscle, binding. The Alpha roared, not in pain, but in fury. When it was over, I collapsed against him, shaking, gasping for air that felt too thin to breathe. Silence fell. His heartbeat thundered beneath my cheek, strong.
Alive.
I laughed weakly. See, I whispered, not dying. His body went utterly still. Slowly, deliberately, he pushed himself upright, lifting me with him as if I weighed nothing. One massive hand closed around my wrist, fingers hot and unyielding. Golden eyes burned down into mine. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. Terror bloomed in my chest. I healed you." "No," he said. "You didn't." His thumb brushed my pulse, then stilled. His expression changed. Recognition flickered. Understanding. Possession. The air shifted, heavy and charged. "You used forbidden binding magic," he said slowly. "Soul tethered." My blood ran cold. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I didn't mean—" "You bound your life to mine," he interrupted. The forest seemed to lean in. His grip tightened, not painfully but certainly, intimately. "When an alpha is saved by blood magic," he continued, voice low and lethal, "the debt does not fade." I tried to pull back. Couldn't. My body responded to his nearness in ways that terrified me, heat curling low in my stomach, breath turning shallow. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. "All debts to an alpha," he said softly, dangerously, "are paid in full." The bond snapped tight between us, hot, inevitable, alive. And in that moment, beneath the blood-red moon, I understood one terrible truth. I had not saved the Alpha King. I had given myself to him. Chapter 2. They came for me at dawn. Not with chains. Not with violence. With a summons sealed in black wax, stamped with the Alpha King's crest. The paper trembled in my hands as I read it, my pulse roaring in my ears louder than the wolves howling beyond the village. Every word felt like a closing door. "You are commanded to present yourself at the Alpha King's fortress before nightfall." No gratitude. No explanation. Only command. By the time the sun climbed the sky, the bond between us had already begun to stir. I felt him before I ever saw the fortress, an invisible pull beneath my skin, warm and relentless, tugging at my breath, my heartbeat, my thoughts. Each step toward the mountains made my chest tighten, like my body recognized a gravity my mind refused to accept. The fortress rose from the cliffs like a crown carved from stone and shadow. Massive, ancient, unforgiving. Wolves lined the battlements, their eyes tracking my every movement as I crossed the drawbridge alone. Whispers followed me inside. "That's her. The unmarked one. The girl who touched the king." Their stares burned hotter than the torches lining the halls. I kept my head high anyway. The doors to the throne chamber groaned open, and the weight of him slammed into me instantly. He sat on the throne like he had been carved there, long legs stretched forward, one arm resting lazily on the carved armrest. He wore black today. No armor, no crown, just raw authority wrapped in human skin. Alpha King. His golden eyes lifted slowly, locking onto mine. The bond flared. Heat coiled low in my stomach, unwanted, unwelcome, undeniable. My breath caught, and I hated myself for it. "You kept me waiting," he said calmly. I swallowed. "You summoned me." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "And you came." "I didn't have a choice." He leaned forward slightly, interest sharpening. "You did." The room felt too small, too intimate. Every sound, my breathing, the rustle of my clothes, felt magnified. "Approach," he ordered. My feet moved before my pride could stop them. With each step, the bond tightened. I felt his attention like hands on my skin, stripping away every defense I'd ever built. When I stopped a few paces from the throne, he stood. Up close, he was worse. Taller, broader, radiating restrained violence and control. I could feel the power humming beneath his skin, steady and terrifying, and beneath it, something darker. Something that pulsed when I was near. "You used forbidden magic," he said softly. Magic that even my court fears. I didn't plan it, I snapped. You were dying. And you chose me. The words landed heavy. I didn't choose you, I said. I chose not to let someone die. His gaze dropped briefly, to my throat, my pulse. Intent does not matter. Magic remembers truth. He circled me slowly. Predatory. Patient. The spell you cast bound your life to mine, he continued. If I weaken, you weaken. If I suffer. I flinched as a sharp echo of pain lanced through my ribs. He stopped instantly. Our eyes met. Understanding passed between us like a spark. You feel it, he murmured. Yes, I whispered. A dangerous smile curved his mouth. Good. Then you understand why you're here. You can break it, I said. Undo it. Silence stretched. Then he laughed low, dark, almost intimate. No, he said simply. My heart dropped. You won't. I can't. The bond surged at the truth in his words. This life debt is older than my crown, he continued. Older than this kingdom. When an alpha's life is saved by soul magic, the debt must be honored. And what does that mean? I asked, dread creeping into my voice. He stepped closer. I didn't retreat. It means, he said quietly, your life is no longer yours. Shame burned my cheeks. Rage flared in my chest. I won't be your prisoner, I hissed. You already are, he replied gently. The gentleness frightened me more than cruelty ever could. He turned away then, as if dismissing me, and yet the bond held me firmly in place, my body refusing to move. You will reside in the eastern wing, he said. You will eat what you are given, sleep where you are placed. You will not leave the fortress without my permission. I'm not your possession, I said. He paused at the steps of the throne. No, he agreed. You are my responsibility. The words struck deeper than ownership. Servants appeared silently, guiding me through corridors lined with stone and firelight. I was given silk softer than anything I had ever touched, rooms warmed by magic, food that tasted like sin, luxury, a gilded cage. That night, as I lay in a bed too large and too empty, the bond awakened fully. Heat curled through me, slow, intimate, invasive. Not hunger, not pain, awareness. I felt his presence like a shadow at my back, his focus brushing against my thoughts, his restraint taut as a drawn blade. Sleep, his voice murmured, not aloud, but inside me. My breath hitched. You're in my head, I whispered. You are in my soul, he answered. Fear and longing twisted together until I couldn't tell them apart. I turned onto my side, pressing my face into silk sheets, fighting the warmth pooling beneath my skin. Let me go, I begged softly. There was a pause. Then regret. If I could, he said quietly, I would. Sleep claimed me, with his presence wrapped tightly around my mind. And in the darkness, I knew one thing with terrifying certainty. The Alpha King had not summoned me to punish me. He had summoned me because he could not let me go. If this bond already has you hooked, if you feel the tension, the danger, the pull between them, subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter. Drop a comment with the line that gave you chills. And stay, because this debt is only beginning to burn. Chapter 3. The first thing I learned about the Alpha's keep was this. Silence was never empty. It breathed. Stone corridors hummed faintly beneath my bare feet as servants guided me deeper into the fortress. Torches burned low along the walls, their flames bending slightly as I passed, as if the magic embedded in the stone recognized me and didn't like it. Or worse, recognized me too well. The room they brought me to was not a cell. That realization unsettled me more than iron bars ever could. The doors opened to a chamber bathed in amber light. Thick rugs softened the stone floor. Heavy curtains framed tall windows overlooking the dark forest far below. A bed carved from black wood dominated the center, large enough to feel intentional. This wasn't imprisonment. It was placement. You will remain here, a female attendant said quietly, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. The Alpha King has ordered constant guard. Guard, I echoed. She hesitated. For your protection." The doors closed behind them with a final, echoing thud. I stood alone, heart pounding. Luxury wrapped around me like a lie. Silk cushions. Warm air scented faintly with cedar and something sharper. Him. His scent clung to everything, subtle but undeniable. Smoke, steel, heat. I pressed a hand to my chest. The bond stirred. A slow pull tightened beneath my ribs, tugging not toward the door, but inward. Toward awareness. Toward him. He wasn't in the room. And yet, I could feel him. Not as a presence beside me, but as a pressure threaded through my veins. Like a second heartbeat sinking itself to mine. Calm. Controlled. Watching. I shivered. "Get out of my head," I whispered. There was no answer. But the bond warmed, almost amused. That night, sleep did not come easily. I lay on the vast bed, staring at the ceiling as shadows danced across the stone. Every sound made my pulse jump, the distant clang of gates, the low murmur of guards, the faint howl of wolves somewhere beyond the walls. And beneath it all, him. I felt his mood shift like weather. A low, simmering tension. Restraint stretched thin. Power held tightly in check. When his focus brushed mine, it wasn't invasive. It was intimate. I turned onto my side, clutching the silk sheets as heat coiled through me without permission. "Stop," I thought fiercely. The bond responded with a slow, deliberate calm. "Sleep," his voice came again, not a command this time, but an offering. My breath hitched. "You don't get to tell me what to do," I murmured aloud. A pause. Then something unexpected. Regret. The sensation rippled through me, unfamiliar and heavy. It startled me enough that my eyes closed, exhaustion finally dragging me under. Morning came wrapped in tension. I woke to sunlight spilling through the curtains and the distinct awareness of being watched. I sat up sharply. He stood near the window, arms crossed, dressed in dark leather and steel. No crown. No guards. Just the Alpha King, framed by light, his expression unreadable. "How long have you been there?" I demanded. "Long enough," he replied. My pulse raced, but not entirely from fear. He turned to face me fully, gaze sweeping over me with unsettling thoroughness. Not hunger. Not lust. Assessment. "You slept," he said. I glared. Against my will. One corner of his mouth twitched. "You fought it." "I always do." He stepped closer, stopping just far enough away that the air between us felt charged rather than suffocating. "The bond will strengthen," he said. "Resistance makes it uncomfortable." "For you?" I snapped. "For both of us." That surprised me. He studied my reaction, eyes sharpening slightly. "You felt it last night." "Yes," I said. "And I didn't like it." "I didn't either," he said quietly. That shut me up. He gestured toward a small table where breakfast had been laid, bread, fruit, steaming tea. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "You are," he said calmly. And to my horror, my stomach betrayed me with a soft growl. Heat crept up my neck. "Magic responds to honesty," he added mildly. I ate in tense silence, every movement monitored. Not in a way that felt cruel, but careful, as if he were containing something dangerous. When I finished, he spoke again. "You will remain close to me during the day." "No." "Yes." "I won't follow you around like some." "Like what?" he interrupted, stepping closer. "A pet? A trophy? A weakness?" The bond flared sharply at the last word. "I won't hide you," he continued. "And I won't pretend you don't exist. You're tied to my life now. That makes you a target." I didn't ask for that. "No," he agreed. "You didn't." His honesty unsettled me more than arrogance ever could. The day passed in strange tension. Servants bowed. Wolves watched. I was escorted everywhere through halls, council chambers, training grounds, always a step behind him. Forced proximity. Every brush of air, every shift of his posture sent ripples through the bond. When he spoke sharply to a warrior, I felt his irritation like a pulse of heat. When a council elder challenged him, I felt the icy restraint he wrapped around his rage. And when someone looked at me with too much curiosity, I felt his possessive warning like a growl beneath my skin. "You don't need to scare them," I muttered under my breath. His reply came instantly. "They should be afraid." The afternoons stretched thin. By evening, exhaustion weighed heavy on my limbs. The bond hummed low and constant, like a fire banked beneath ash. When night fell, I was escorted back to my chamber. I expected solitude. I did not expect him. He stood near the hearth this time, firelight casting sharp shadows across his face. The tension in him was different tonight, tighter, more dangerous. "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly. "And yet," he replied, "here I am." The door closed behind him. The sound echoed far too loudly. "This isn't appropriate," I added. "For whom?" he asked softly. "For either of us." He took a slow step closer. "I won't touch you," he said, "but you need to understand what you've done." My heart pounded. "You saved my life," he continued, "but you also tethered yourself to something darker than you know." "I'm not afraid of you," I said, though it wasn't entirely true. His gaze dropped briefly, to my throat, my pulse. "You should be," he murmured, "and you shouldn't want me." The bond surged hot and sharp, responding to the truth beneath his words. "I don't," I whispered. Another step closer. "Liar." The word wasn't cruel. It was intimate. I felt it then, his awareness folding around my fear, my longing, my shame. Not consuming. Containing. "You feel everything I suppress," he said quietly. "Every instinct. Every hunger. Every restraint." Heat flooded me, dizzying and unwanted. "And you think I don't feel yours?" he added. My breath caught. "I feel your fear," he continued. "Your defiance. Your curiosity." He stopped inches away. "And your desire." The word burned. I looked up at him, heart racing, body betraying me. "Get out," I said shakily. For a moment, just one, I thought he wouldn't. Then he stepped back. Controls snapped into place like armor. "Sleep," he said again, not as a command, but a promise. "Tomorrow will be harder." As he turned to leave, the bond pulled painfully tight. One last thing passed between us before the door closed. Loneliness, and the terrifying realization that he could feel my fear, and I could feel his restraint. Chapter 4. By the fourth night, the fortress began to feel alive. Not in the way homes do, warm, familiar, but in the way old things awaken when secrets are disturbed. The stone hummed beneath my feet. The torches flickered when I passed. Wolves howled more often after sunset, their voices threaded with unease. And the Alpha King, he was unraveling. I felt it before I saw it. The bond woke me just before dusk, sharp, insistent, dragging me from sleep with a pulse of pain that wasn't mine. I sat upright, breath coming too fast, heart hammering. Something was wrong. Not danger from outside the fortress. From within him. I pressed my hand to my chest as the sensation deepened, pressure like claws scraping along my ribs, followed by a wave of exhaustion, so heavy it nearly flattened me. "Stop," I whispered into the empty room. "Please." The bond did not stop. It answered, not with words, but images. A crown cracking in half, blood-soaking marble steps, a throne carved from bone. I gasped, clutching the bed as the vision snapped away. Moments later, the doors opened. He didn't announce himself this time. The Alpha King stepped inside like a shadow slipping free of its source. His shoulders were tense, jaw locked, golden eyes darker than I'd seen them yet. "You felt it," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I breathed. "What's happening to you?" He didn't answer immediately. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately, stopping near the hearth. Firelight revealed the truth his control had been hiding, lines of strain around his eyes, tension coiled too tightly in his frame. "The curse stirs at night," he said finally. The words settled between us like ash. "Curse," I repeated. "Yes." I rose from the bed, anger sparking through fear. "You didn't tell me." "No," he agreed. "I didn't." "Why?" His gaze flicked to me sharp. Because knowledge binds tighter than magic. The bond flared at the truth of it. I took a step closer. Then another. What kind of curse? I asked quietly. He exhaled slowly, like a man standing at the edge of a blade. One that demands sacrifice, he said. One that keeps this kingdom standing. Cold crept into my veins. You mean blood, I whispered. Not always. I felt the bond shift, tightening, drawing energy from me without my consent. My knees weakened, and I caught myself on the edge of the bed. You're feeding on me, I said hoarsely. His head snapped up.
No.
You are, I insisted. I can feel it. Silence stretched. Then, quietly, I didn't intend to. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, stopping just close enough that I could feel his heat. His hands hovered at my waist, never touching, never crossing that line. The life debt stabilizes the curse, he said. Your presence anchors me. My breath stuttered. At my expense. Yes. The honesty hurt more than lies ever could. So that's it, I said bitterly. I'm your living ward. A tether. No, his voice dropped rougher. You're the reason I'm still human. The word struck something deep and dangerous. What happens if I leave? I asked.
His jaw tightened.
The curse consumes more of me. And if I stay? He hesitated. It consumes you. Fear bloomed sharp and cold, but beneath it, something else stirred. Something unwanted.
Curiosity.
You never touch me, I said slowly. Why? The bond flared hot at the question. He looked away. Because restraint is all that stands between me and becoming what they fear, he said quietly. I stepped closer again, heart racing. And what do you fear? He met my gaze. That if I take you, he said, voice low and dangerous, I won't stop. Heat curled through me, shocking in its intensity. I should have stepped back. I didn't. What do you want from me? I whispered. His eyes dropped to my lips, then dragged back up. Your soul keeps mine human, he said, but I will not claim it. The contradiction twisted something inside me. Why? Because it would be easier, he admitted. And I don't trust easy things. The bond pulsed again, painful now. A sharp echo shot through my chest, and I gasped. He moved instantly, catching me before I fell. One arm wrapped around my back, strong and unyielding. Don't, I whispered, trembling. He froze. Let go, I begged. Slowly, agonizingly, he loosened his hold. His hands retreated like a man stepping back from fire. The space between us felt louder than any touch. You should rest, he said hoarsely. Night makes this worse. Stay, I said before I could stop myself. The word hung between us, dangerous and bare. He searched my face, conflict written plainly across his features. I can't, he said. Why? Because if I do, he replied softly, I'll want more. The bond surged, desire tangled with fear, longing wrapped in restraint. My body responded traitorously, heat pooling low, breath shallow. He felt it. I knew he did. The room seemed to contract around us. Leave, I said, voice shaking. Before this becomes something neither of us can undo. For a heartbeat, I thought he would argue. Instead, he turned away. At the door, he paused. The curse feeds on dominance, he said quietly. On control. On fear. Then, without looking back, love is the one thing it cannot touch. The door closed. I sank onto the bed, heart racing, body aching with sensations I didn't understand or want to. But deep inside, beneath fear and anger and shame, a terrifying realization took root. I wasn't just stabilizing his curse. I was changing him. And if the curse learned that, it would fight back. Chapter 5. Night no longer waited for the sun to set. It arrived inside me first. I felt it as dusk bled into the sky, a low ache curling beneath my ribs, slow and insistent, like something waking and stretching after a long sleep. The bond stirred with it, warming, tightening, pulling my awareness outward.
Toward him.
I pressed my palms to the stone windowsill, watching the forest darken below. Wolves moved through the trees in shadows and silver eyes, restless. The fortress responded to their unease, walls humming softly, torches flaring brighter than necessary. He was fighting it again. The hunger. Not for blood. Not for power. For me. The knowledge sent heat sliding through my body in a way that made my breath stutter. I hated it. I hated how my body recognized his restraint before my mind did. How the bond translated his denial into sensation, tight, slow pulses that settled low and dangerous. A knock sounded at the door. I didn't need to be told who it was. "Come in," I said softly. He entered without ceremony, dressed in dark linen instead of armor, his movements controlled but sharp around the edges. Firelight caught the angles of his face, the tension in his jaw. "You shouldn't be here," I said, though the words lacked conviction.
"Neither should you," he replied.
The door closed. The sound felt intimate. Final. We stood on opposite sides of the room, the distance between us charged and brittle. "You feel it every night now," he said quietly. "Yes. And you don't tell me to leave anymore. I don't tell you to stay either." His gaze darkened.
"No.
You don't." The bond pulsed, anticipation braided with fear. He moved to the table near the hearth, pouring wine neither of us drank. It was an excuse. A buffer. I watched the flex of his hands as he set the cup down untouched. "I won't feed tonight," he said abruptly. My chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means the curse will push harder," he replied. "And so will the bond." "Why would you do that?" He turned to face me, golden eyes burning low. "Because I need to know something." I swallowed. "What?" "If you feel this because of magic," he said slowly, "or because of me." The question hit harder than any command. "I don't know," I whispered. "Neither do I," he admitted. "And that uncertainty is dangerous." The bond surged, heat flooding my veins sharper now. I gasped, clutching the edge of the bed. He was at my side instantly, too fast to track. "Easy," he murmured, voice rough. "Breathe." His hand hovered inches from my waist. Didn't touch. The restraint was worse than contact. "Stop fighting it," he said softly. "You're shaking." "So are you," I shot back. He stilled. I was right. His control was cracking, not violently, but with strain so intense it vibrated through the bond. I felt his hunger now clearly, raw, aching, laced with guilt and longing. Not possession.
Need.
"I don't want this to be magic," he said quietly. "I don't want to wonder if what you feel is stolen." My heart pounded. "And if it isn't?"
His jaw tightened.
"Then I'm already lost." Silence fell thick and heavy. "Sit," he said after a moment, not as a command, but a plea. I obeyed. He sat across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched. The fire snapped and crackled between us, heat building in the small space. "Tell me something real," he said. "Not about the bond. About you."
The request startled me. "Why?"
"Because I need to know who I'm restraining myself for." I hesitated, then laughed softly. "I was never meant to be important." He frowned. "No one is meant to be unimportant." "I was unmarked," I said. "Unclaimed. Useful only because I stayed invisible." His gaze sharpened. "You're not invisible." "I was," I insisted. "Until I touched you." The bond warmed at the truth. "What do you hunger for?" he asked suddenly. The question made my breath catch. "I." "Answer honestly," he said. "The bond will know if you lie." I swallowed hard. "To be chosen," I said quietly. "Not because I'm needed, but because I'm wanted." The words felt dangerous, once spoken. His breath hitched. "That," he said hoarsely, "is exactly why I haven't touched you." The fire popped loudly. "Because if I do," he continued, "you'll never doubt whether you're wanted." Heat flared between us, sharp and dizzying. "And you're afraid," I whispered, "that I'll mistake hunger for love." His gaze locked onto mine. "Yes." The honesty left him bare, in a way power never had. I shifted closer, without thinking. Our knees brushed. The bond surged violently, desire, fear, restraint colliding. Then move, I whispered. Or don't, but stop standing between us and calling it control. His breath shuddered. For a moment, I thought he would break. His hand lifted, hovered near my jaw, then clenched into a fist and dropped back to his side. If I take you, he said, voice low and shaking, I may never stop. The words wrapped around my spine like heat. Then don't take, I replied softly. Choose. The silence stretched. Finally, he stood abruptly, stepping back like the distance physically pained him. This, he said tightly, is why nights are dangerous. He turned toward the door. Wait, I said. He paused. Stay, I added. Just stay. Without touching. Without taking. He didn't look at me. That's harder. I know. The door remained closed. He stayed. We sat in silence as the night deepened, two hearts pulling toward the same fire, neither daring to cross the line. And in that quiet, shared hunger, something shifted. Not the bond. Not the curse.
Trust.
But far above us, in the bones of the fortress itself, something ancient stirred, alert, threatened, and watching. Because hunger denied does not fade. It waits. Chapter 6. The court learned the truth at sunrise. I didn't hear it from whispers or see it in the way servants suddenly avoided my eyes. I felt it, in the bond, when the Alpha King's restraint fractured for the first time since the night we met. It hit me like a blow to the chest. Rage.
Cold.
Controlled. Deadly. I gasped awake, clutching the sheets as his fury slammed through me, sharp enough to steal my breath. My pulse raced, echoing his, too fast, too hard. Stay where you are, his voice came through the bond, rough and urgent. What happened? I whispered aloud, heart pounding. They know. Fear bloomed instantly, ice cold and suffocating. Before I could ask more, the doors to my chamber burst open, not violently, but with a finality that left no room for resistance. Guards filled the doorway, their expressions carefully blank. The Alpha King summons you, one said. I swung my legs over the bed, already shaking.
Now.
Yes. The walk to the council chamber felt longer than ever before. Wolves lined the corridor, elders, generals, pack leaders, every gaze sharp, calculating, hungry. Predators assessing prey. The massive doors opened. The council chamber was carved from black stone and bone, circular and oppressive, the air heavy with dominance and judgment. Elders sat in a ring, their power pressing inward like a vice. And at the center, the Alpha King stood alone. He did not look at me as I entered. His posture was rigid, coiled like a storm barely held in check. Shadows clung to him unnaturally, as if the curse itself leaned closer when threatened. I took my place beside him. The bond flared, protective, furious, aching. She is the source, one elder said flatly, eyes burning into me. We felt the disruption weeks ago. She carries forbidden magic, another snarled. Unmarked, unbound, unfit. I opened my mouth to speak. Silence, a third barked. You stand accused of tethering yourself to the Alpha King's life force. I saved him, I said anyway, voice shaking. He was dying. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The kingdom survived before you, the eldest elder said coldly. And it will survive after you. The Alpha King finally moved. One step forward. The room stilled. She is under my protection, he said, voice calm and lethal. And no harm will come to her. The elder laughed softly. You forget yourself, Alpha. Golden eyes flared. I am the Alpha, he said. And I do not forget. Another elder leaned forward. You forget that the curse answers to balance. The girl stabilizes it, yes. But she is also a weakness. The bond pulsed painfully. A weakness enemies can exploit, the elder continued. Already have. The Alpha King's hands clenched. She must die, the elder concluded. For the good of the realm. The words slammed into me like a blade. I swayed. The bond exploded. No, the Alpha King said. The word echoed, absolute. The elders stiffened. You would choose her, one asked incredulously. Over the kingdom? Yes. The answer was immediate. Final. The chamber erupted.
Shouts.
Accusations. Threats of rebellion and war. The curse surged violently, reacting to the chaos, clawing at my chest until I cried out. The Alpha King turned to me instantly, hands hovering, still refusing to touch. Enough, he roared. The sound cracked stone. Silence fell. I will not sacrifice her, he said coldly. But neither will I let the curse consume her. The elders exchanged wary looks. There is another way, the eldest said slowly. Sever the bond. My heart leapt, then sank. It will not kill her, the elder continued, but it will break her. The bond will tear itself loose. She will live. And I, the Alpha King asked. The elder's gaze sharpened. You will lose what stabilizes you. The curse stirred hungrily. I turned to the Alpha King, dread pooling in my stomach. Don't, I whispered. Please.
He didn't look at me.
This is my decree, he said quietly. She will leave tonight. Shock tore through me. What? She will be escorted beyond the borders, he continued. The bond will weaken with distance. You can't decide that for me, I said, voice breaking. He finally faced me. His eyes were devastatingly gentle. I already have. The bond screamed. I won't let them kill you, he said softly, so only I could hear. Even if it costs me everything. Tears burned my eyes. You think abandoning me is mercy? Yes, he whispered. Because loving you is the one weakness I won't survive. The words cut deeper than any blade. Guard stepped forward. No, I said, backing away. I won't go. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. Pain flashed through the bond, his sharp and controlled. You will, he said firmly, and you will live. The guards reached for me. I reacted on instinct. Magic flared. Wild, untrained, desperate. The chamber shook as power ripped free of my control, knocking guards backward. Gasps echoed as elders recoiled. The Alpha King surged forward. Stop. I stumbled back, heart racing, terror and fury crashing together. You don't get to choose for me, I cried. You don't get to decide I'm expendable. His expression shattered. I'm not choosing against you, he said hoarsely. I'm choosing you over everything. The bond pulsed grief, love, devastation. I felt it then, his resolve hardening. He was going to let me go. I turned and ran. No guard stopped me. No commands followed. The corridors blurred as I fled, tears streaming down my face, the bond pulling painfully tight with every step away. Behind me, I felt him fall to one knee. The curse surged. The fortress screamed. And as I crossed the outer gates, breath ragged and heartbreaking, one truth burned brighter than fear. Distance did not weaken the bond. It tore at it. And somewhere behind me, the Alpha King was bleeding again, this time because of me. Chapter 7. Freedom tasted like ash. The moment I crossed the border stones, the world seemed to tilt, like the land itself rejected me. The forest stretched wide and endless before me, moonlight filtering through blackened branches, but instead of relief, pain detonated in my chest. I dropped to my knees. Air tore from my lungs as the bond screamed, no longer a steady pull, but a violent recoil, like flesh ripping from bone. I clawed at the ground, gasping, heart hammering so hard I thought it might shatter. Stop, I sobbed. Please stop. The bond didn't stop. It tightened. Not because I was leaving him, because he was falling. I saw it then, not with my eyes, but with my soul. The fortress shaking. Stone cracking beneath impossible pressure. The Alpha King on one knee, blood dark against marble, his control splintering as the curse surged unchecked. I screamed his name into the night. The pain eased slightly, not gone, never gone, but dulled enough for me to breathe again. I staggered to my feet, shaking violently, and forced myself onward. Distance was supposed to weaken the bond. That was the lie. Distance only stripped away the restraint. Every step away from the fortress tore open another layer of awareness. I felt his exhaustion, his fury, his iron will cracking under the weight of the curse now that I was no longer anchoring him. And beneath it all, loneliness. Not the quiet kind. The devastating kind that comes when someone has finally been seen and then left. By dawn, I reached a small village tucked against the edge of the wildlands. Humans mostly. A few low-ranked wolves. No one asked questions when I paid for a room with shaking hands and hollow eyes. They didn't need to. Whatever I was carrying inside me showed on my face. I collapsed onto the narrow bed and slept like the dead.
Dreams found me anyway.
I dreamed of golden eyes burning through darkness, of claws scraping stone, of a voice whispering my name like a wound. I woke with a scream lodged in my throat. My chest burned, not metaphorically, physically. I pressed my palm over my heart and felt it, heat spiraling outward, frantic and sharp. He was in danger. I didn't need visions to know it now. The bond thrummed like a war drum, frantic and unstable, flooding me with fragmented impressions.
Blood.
Shattered glass. A roar that shook the sky. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I stumbled out of bed and into the street, ignoring the stares of early risers. The sun had barely risen, but my skin prickled as if night still clung to me. The bond flared again. This time, it nearly dropped me to the ground. I saw him clearly now. The Alpha King stood alone in the inner courtyard, surrounded by elders who screamed warnings he no longer heard. Black veins of curse magic crawled up his arms, his eyes glowing too bright, too feral. He was losing himself. Because I wasn't there. Why won't you stop? I cried aloud, tears streaming down my face. The bond answered, not with images but truth. Because love does not loosen with distance. Because choice cannot be undone. Because what was freely given cannot be reclaimed. I sank against a wall, breath coming in ragged gasps. This wasn't punishment. It was consequence. I had believed leaving would save him. But the curse didn't fear distance. It feared connection. And without me, the one thing that softened him, grounded him, was gone. I made it 3 days. 3 days of waking to his pain. 3 days of watching his control erode through the bond. 3 days of telling myself I was doing this for him, while feeling him die piece by piece. On the 4th night, the bond went eerily quiet. No pain. No pull. No presence. Nothing. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. No, I whispered. No, please. The silence stretched. Then, sudden, blinding agony tore through me, sharp enough to steal my scream. I collapsed, body convulsing as the bond detonated with raw terror. Not his. Mine. Because in that instant I understood. He had stopped resisting. Not the curse. Me leaving. I saw it all in one devastating rush. The Alpha King kneeling before the elders. His crown shattered at his feet. His voice calm as he said, "If the kingdom requires a monster, then I will become one." No, I screamed, curling in on myself. The bond raged, unstable and violent, feeding me his resolve, cold, final, terrifying. He was choosing the curse. Choosing it so I wouldn't have to die for it. My chest heaved as realization slammed into me. Saving his life once had never been enough. Leaving him had never been mercy. Loving him was the true price. And he was paying it alone. I stood abruptly, swaying, fear burning into determination. No, I said aloud, voice shaking but fierce. You don't get to do this without me. The bond flared, confusion, shock, a flicker of something dangerously close to hope. I packed nothing. I didn't sleep. I ran. The road back to the fortress felt shorter, as if the land itself bent beneath my urgency. Every step closer eased the bond, not completely, but enough to know I was doing the right thing. Night fell as the fortress came into view. And then, chaos. Smoke rose from the battlements. Wolves howled, not in warning, but in panic. The air reeked of blood and magic gone wrong. I didn't slow. Guards shouted as I passed. Someone tried to stop me. I didn't even register who. The bond burned hot and frantic now, pulling me forward like a living thing.
Toward him.
The courtyard was a battlefield. Stone cracked and scorched. Bodies lay scattered, elders, guards, rebels I didn't recognize. At the center of it all stood the Alpha King. Or what remained of him. His posture was wrong. Too tall, too sharp, power bleeding off him in waves that warped the air. Blackened magic crawled across his skin like living shadow. His golden eyes glowed feral and wild. The curse had risen. And then, he turned. His gaze locked onto me. Shock ripped through the bond. You shouldn't be here, his voice thundered inside my head. I walked toward him anyway. I know, I said aloud, heart hammering. But I am. Fear slammed into me. Not of him, but for him. Go, he snarled, voice layered with something inhuman. Before I. You won't, I said, stopping a few paces away. Because you never have. The curse surged, furious. His hands shook. You don't understand, he growled. I chose this, so you wouldn't have to suffer. And I choose you, I shot back, tears streaming. Not the crown. Not the kingdom. You. The bond flared violently, desire, love, terror, relief crashing together. For one breathless moment, he looked lost. Then the curse roared. The ground cracked beneath his feet as the darkness surged higher, threatening to swallow him whole. I stepped closer. This isn't just your fight, I said, voice breaking. You don't get to carry it alone. The bond tightened, not painfully this time, but with terrible clarity.
He saw it then.
The truth. Not magic. Not debt.
Choice.
The courtyard trembled as the curse recoiled, angry, threatened. And for the first time since the bond formed, the Alpha King looked afraid. Not of the curse,
but of losing me.
Chapter 8. The courtyard held its breath. Stone lay shattered beneath claw and magic, smoke coiling upward like a warning. Wolves ringed the space, warriors, elders, servants, frozen in a circle of fear as the curse bared its teeth in the body of their king. He stood at the center, towering, wrong in a way that hurt to see. Shadow clung to him, like a second skin. Power rippled outward in violent waves that made the air taste of iron and ash. His golden eyes burned too bright, feral and fractured, as if the beast the kingdom feared had finally found its way to the surface. And still he looked at me. Not as prey. As anchor. Go, he snarled again, voice layered with something ancient and hungry. Before I lose what control I have left. The bond roared between us, a living thing, tugging me forward with ruthless insistence. I took a step closer, ignoring the sharp warning cry from a guard, the hissed gasps of the elders. I won't, I said clearly. Not this time. The curse surged, reacting to my defiance. The ground cracked, a spiderweb of fractures racing outward from his feet. You don't understand, he growled, jaw clenched so tightly I heard teeth grind. I chose this. I chose the monster, so you wouldn't have to be torn apart by it. And I chose you, I said, voice trembling but unbroken. Not the crown. Not the kingdom. You. A ripple moved through the watching wolves' disbelief, fear, something like awe. The eldest elder stepped forward, voice sharp. Girl, stand back. You endanger us all. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed on the Alpha King. Look at me, I whispered. He did, struggling, shaking, fighting the tide inside himself. I'm here, I continued. Not because of a debt. Not because of magic. Because I want to be. The bond flared, hot, blinding, then steadied into something fierce and sure. You said the curse feeds on dominance, I said. On fear.
His chest heaved.
Then let it starve, I finished. Because I'm not afraid of you. The curse screamed. Black veins crawled higher along his arms, shadows writhing like living things. He staggered, one knee buckling, a pained sound tearing from his throat. A guard rushed forward.
Don't, I snapped.
The Alpha King threw an arm out, halting them all. His gaze never left mine. You should be terrified, he said hoarsely. Everyone else is. I'm not everyone else, I replied. I stepped into the storm. Heat slammed into me, raw, brutal power pressing against my skin, testing, daring me to break. I gritted my teeth and pushed through it, every instinct screaming. I see you, I said. Not the crown. Not the beast. The man who chose restraint when taking would have been easier. The bond surged, violent and desperate. You think this is love, he snarled, fighting the curse's pull. Love doesn't stand in front of a monster and dare not to strike. Yes, I said softly. It does. I reached for him. The gasp from the crowd was sharp and collective. My fingers brushed his wrist. Hot, trembling, shadow-scarred. The curse recoiled like it had been burned. He froze. You said your soul keeps mine human, I whispered. Then let me choose to stay. The words landed like a blade of light. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the curse exploded outward, furious, lashing, ripping at both of us, trying to tear the bond apart by force. Pain ripped through my chest. I cried out, knees buckling.
He caught me.
For the first time since the bond formed, he didn't stop himself. His arms locked around me, crushing me against his chest, as if letting go would end us both. The contact was electric, searing, grounding, terrifyingly right. The crowd erupted, shouts, orders, fear. Alpha, someone screamed. Release her. He didn't. He bowed his head, pressing his forehead to mine, breath ragged. I can't protect you, he whispered. Not from this. I don't need protection, I said through the pain. I need you to stop choosing fear. The curse howled, blackening the air, forcing his body to change, bones shifting, shadows thickening, power spilling unchecked. He roared, half fury, half agony, and the sound shook the walls. I won't become that, he snarled. I won't rule as a monster. Then don't, I said, gripping him tighter. Rule as a man who chose. The bond flared brighter than ever before, not wild, not violent, but clear. It burned away the noise, the fear, the hunger, leaving only truth.
He saw it then.
Not the magic.
The choice.
His arms tightened around me, not possessive, but protective, not claiming but committing. I choose you, he said, voice breaking. Openly.
Publicly.
Knowing the cost, light tore through the courtyard. Not sunlight. Not magic. Something deeper. The curse screamed as it recoiled, shadow ripping free from his skin in violent arcs, shattering against the stone like glass. The ground split, then stilled. The air cleared, the pressure easing as if a storm had finally broken. When the light faded, he collapsed to one knee, human, shaking, whole. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I knelt with him, holding his face between my hands, breath coming in sobbing gasps of relief. You're here, I whispered. He looked up at me, golden eyes clear and stunned. I'm free, he said, disbelief threading his voice. Around us, wolves stared in silence. The eldest elder fell to one knee. Then another. And another. The Alpha King didn't look at them. He stood slowly, keeping one hand firmly in mine, and turned to face the court. No soul taken without choice is worth ruling with, he said, voice steady and resonant. Let any who oppose that truth step forward now. No one did. The courtyard bowed. And in the center of it all, with smoke thinning and fear dissolving, he pulled me close, not to hide me, but to be seen with me. The bond settled, not as a chain, but as a vow. Chapter 9. The silence after the curse broke was louder than the roar that came before it. It pressed down on the courtyard like a held breath, heavy, trembling, unsure what came next. Smoke drifted upward in thin, pale ribbons. Stones still glowed faintly where power had scorched it. Wolves remained frozen where they stood, eyes wide, ears tilted forward, bodies caught between instinct and awe. The Alpha King stood at the center of it all.
Human. Whole.
And undone. He looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time, flexing his fingers slowly, testing, as though expecting shadow to crawl back up his skin. "It's gone," he murmured. The bond between us answered before I could. It no longer burned or pulled or demanded. It rested, warm, steady, alive in a way that felt chosen rather than forced. "Yes," I whispered. "It's gone." His breath left him in a long, unsteady exhale. Then, to the shock of every wolf watching, he knelt. The sound of his knee striking stone echoed like a declaration. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Elders stiffened. Warriors shifted uneasily, instinct screaming that an alpha does not kneel, not to anyone. But he did. Not because he was weak. Because he was certain. He looked up at me from that position, golden eyes stripped bare of dominance, fear, and armor. "I took your soul without asking," he said, voice carrying across the courtyard. "Not by intention, but by consequence." My chest tightened. "I bound you to me through power," he continued. "Through blood. Through a crown that demanded obedience instead of consent." The elders stirred, discomfort rippling through the circle. "And I will not rule like that again," he said firmly. He bowed his head. "I return what was never mine to take." The bond shifted, soft, reverent, opening like a door. "I offer myself to you," he said quietly. "Not as alpha, not as king, but as a man who chooses you freely and will accept whatever answer you give." My breath caught.
Choice.
The word vibrated through the courtyard like a living thing. The bond waited, not pulling, not demanding, waiting. Tears burned my eyes as I stepped closer. The stone beneath my feet felt solid, real, no longer warped by curse or fear. "You don't have to kneel," I whispered. "I know," he replied. "That's why I am." I knelt too. The collective inhale from the watching wolves was sharp and stunned. I cupped his face in my hands, grounding myself in the warmth of his skin, the steadiness of his breath. "I was never your debt," I said softly. "And you were never my captor." His eyes shimmered. "We were two people trapped inside a system that fed on fear," I continued. "And we broke it." The bond responded, light unfurling between us, not blinding, not violent. Gentle.
Certain.
"I choose you," I said. "Not because I'm bound. Not because I'm needed." He swallowed hard. "But because I want you." The words landed like a vow. The bond sealed, not with force, but with consent so complete it felt sacred. Power moved through the courtyard, not explosive, not destructive, but stabilizing. Wolves straightened, breathing easier. The air cleared. The land itself seemed to settle, as if relieved. He rose slowly, offering me his hand, not to pull me up, but to ask. I took it. The crowd dropped to one knee in unison. Not in fear, in acknowledgement. The eldest elder bowed his head deeply. "The curse is broken," he said, voice hoarse. "And so is the old law." Murmurs spread, shock giving way to understanding. The Alpha King, no, the man, turned to them. "There will be no more debts paid in blood or soul," he said. "No more bonds without consent. This kingdom will stand on choice, or it will not stand at all." No one challenged him, because power had changed shape. Later, when the courtyard finally cleared and night softened the edges of the world, we stood alone beneath the stars. The fortress loomed quieter now, no longer watching us like a predator, but like a home relearning itself. He faced me, uncertainty flickering through his eyes. "I don't know who I am without the curse," he admitted. I smiled softly. "Then we'll find out." He reached for me slowly, pausing, searching my face. I nodded. His touch was careful, reverent, nothing like the heat and restraint that once haunted us. When his hand rested at my waist, it felt earned. "I will never take without asking," he said. "I know, and if you ever choose to leave." "I won't," I said gently. But thank you for giving me the choice. His forehead rested against mine. I spent my life believing dominance was strength, he murmured. You taught me that restraint is stronger. And you taught me, I replied, that love doesn't demand, it invites. The bond hummed softly between us, content and whole. For the first time since the night beneath the blood-red moon, there was no fear in it, only promise. Chapter 10. Peace did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments, quiet mornings, softened footsteps, a kingdom relearning how to breathe without fear. In the days that followed the curse's breaking, the fortress changed. The walls no longer hummed with restless power. The torches burned steady instead of flaring in warning. Wolves spoke in normal tones, laughter cautiously returning to halls that had once swallowed sound. And the Alpha King no longer ruled from shadow. He stood beside me in sunlight. The first time we faced the court together after the curse, there was no crown on his head. Gasps echoed through the chamber. He didn't flinch. Power taken through fear is borrowed, he said calmly. And borrowed power always demands repayment. His gaze swept the room. Elders, warriors, servants alike. I will not rule on dead again. Silence followed. Then, one by one, wolves knelt. Not because they were compelled, because they believed. Later, when the hall emptied and dusk painted the sky in amber and violet, we walked the battlements together. Wind tugged at my hair. The forest stretched endlessly below, no longer a threat, just land. I keep waiting, he admitted quietly, to feel the curse pull me back. Does it? I asked. He shook his head slowly.
No.
But sometimes I still expect punishment for choosing happiness. I stopped walking and turned to face him. You were taught that love weakens, I said. It doesn't. It reveals. His eyes softened. You were never my payment, he said. You were my awakening. The bond stirred gently, no chains, no fire. Just warmth. That night, we stood beneath the open sky. Stars scattered like promises we hadn't yet learned how to name. He took my hands, thumbs brushing my knuckles with reverent care. I saved your life once, I said softly. He smiled, a real one unguarded. And I've spent every day since learning how to honor that gift. He lowered himself again, not to kneel, but to meet my eyes at the same level. I owe you more than survival, he continued. I owe you truth.
Choice.
A future where you are never owned, only chosen. Emotion tightened my throat. And what does an alpha truly owe? I asked quietly. He answered without hesitation. Devotion without possession. Strength without cruelty. Love without debt. The bond responded, settling fully, complete. Weeks passed. The kingdom healed. Borders reopened. Old laws were rewritten. Bonds forged without consent were dissolved. Wolves who had lived their lives under fear found themselves uncertain, but freer than they had ever been. And me? I was no longer invisible. I walked the halls without guards at my back. I spoke in councils. I laughed where silence once lived.
I was not alpha.
Not queen. I was chosen. One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the world gold, he found me at the edge of the cliff overlooking the forest where it had all begun. The moon will turn red tonight, he said softly. I smiled. It won't mean the same thing anymore. No, he agreed. Now it's just a moon. He stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind, careful and warm. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Saving me. I leaned back against him, heart steady. Never, I said. But I'm glad you stopped asking for my soul. He laughed softly. I never wanted it. Liar. I teased gently. He kissed my temple. I wanted your choice, he corrected. And you gave it freely. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth. Wolves howled, not in warning, but in celebration. And as night fell, I realized the truth that had been waiting from the very beginning. I didn't save the Alpha King's life. I saved the man beneath the crown. And he spent the rest of his ruling proving my soul was never the price. If this story pulled you in, if you felt the bond, the tension, the love that defied fate. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next dark romance. Comment your favorite line or moment. Like and share if you want more alpha romance, cursed kings, and soul-deep love. A new story is already awakening, and the next alpha is waiting.